Touche.
She knew she was there.
Hide that golf cart, but not the lawnmower, huh?
Oh, that's good.
She knew that was safe. I wouldn't get on that thing. When you got a wife that likes to mow, you know you gotta keep her.
I like the guy who hides his wife's Christmas presents in the oven.
I've done that too. I don't worry about that though.
We had a guy that-
She likes to.
He's been married the second time. He's talking about how his wife is really good. She always thought she was gonna mow the whole yard. Earlier, anything, they say
Yeah.
equal, whatever, they know where to fertilize his yard right. Oh. They've already-
That's
Have
me.
you been on that mower yet?
She don't really, my wife don't really like, she can cook and doesn't mind it, but she don't really, that's not one of her favorite things, but she'd rather mow. I come home the other night playing golf and I'm telling you, it was dark
Turn it on, yes.
and she's out there mowing.
Yeah.
There's no way she could see, but I'm not going out there to say that. Just went on in the garage, just peeled around.
Always like a me time.
Yeah. Okay, so we were supposed to, we ready to go?
Yep.
Now? We're live, keeping our faces. Just push it up.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Surprise.
Okay. Well, what time is it?
521.
5:21. Let's call this meeting to order at 5:21. This is the special call meeting of the Calvert City Council. Call to order. We had a little technical delay here at the start of this thing, so we're going now. And so let's go to the approval of the minutes of the previous two meetings. Has everybody had a chance to review those? August 9th, the regular meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve August 9th.
Got a motion to
Minutes.
approve. Second.
Second.
Got a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, those minutes passed. Thank you. Then we had the special call meeting. It was held on August the 23rd. That was specifically called to approve a resolution relating to a infrastructure financing. How about a motion to approve these?
I'll make a motion to approve those minutes.
I'll
Second.
second.
Second, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Okay, so we got the overhead portion of this meeting over with. And so I thank you guys for showing up. And this is the second time that I feel like I've imposed on you this week for something. As we all know, we put the order of business tonight is to discuss and consider duties and priorities for an enforcement officer for compliance with city ordinances. And this enforcement officer is not going to be a police officer. This is one to take care of the nuisance ordinances and things like that around town. So we all agreed on it enough that we did budget a salary in the budget for this.
What was that a budget amount, sir?
I think it was 70. 70 is what it's budgeted at. And there's some particulars around that I probably need to get more familiar with. That's the full meal deal, right? The 70 is what we put in for wages and benefits, I think.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
thinking that wasn't the salary.
That's not the salary.
That's
That's,
wages and benefits.
yep, that's what we have, wages and benefits.
The benefits usually about a 30% add on, something like that.
But, one of the things is we look, instead of going out, rushing out and hiring somebody as soon as the fiscal year was here, there's more work that needs to be done here. If this person gets on board and starts chasing some of the things that we know need to be chased, we need to have a reality check and make sure what we think we want in the city. And, I want to get the council's input into what the duties will be before we go and try to find the successful candidate to do that. So just kind of I've asked Blair to kind of take the role of facilitator here as we toss around some ideas about what we can expect. And administration, John and I have sat down and discussed some of what we consider the basic blocking and tackling of the position, right? And are ready to discuss it. Is John And
John is in the other room.
he's in the other room. Okay.
Yeah.
I see his name up there. Okay.
I'm here.
All right. So, expectations on compliance duties. John, would you like, we've got a handout which we distributed to council and people present in the room. John, would you want to go down? So kind of breaking out this thing into three different ways, you know, the initial job duties that could be the prevention and proactive measures that we would see it kind of moving into as the position matures and we learn more about where our areas of emphasis are and how we can support them. And then on up into the future programs to adopt would be as we move forward. You know, I think that many times in council, almost every council meeting, not everyone, almost everyone, there's somebody who is aware of an issue in the community and is inquiring as to the conditions of a property or responding to a citizen's concerns about some property, maybe even some questions about what they need to do with their property. Okay. So I want to, you know, this is a theoretical discussion. This isn't the meeting that I'd like to refrain from it. You know, as we talk about these things, my mind goes to examples of things, you know, on the corner of such and such. And I'd like to try to stay as generic as we can about what if scenarios and kind of keep this more on a theoretical plane and not get into a blow by blow kind of, hey, what are we going to do about this at this time? We're concerned with trying to identify what the core job duties are and move forward from there. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to John to talk about some of the expectations that we have bulleted out here.
Over the years, 17 years, we've worked at this, and it's always been secondary because the primary functions of this office have been actually taking a lot of time away from the ability to do enforcement or compliance. And I looked at, of course, I've thought about this for quite some time, but I wanted us to look at the possibility of what are the areas that trouble us most and what we've discussed over the years. And I've come down with those bullets that you see on the job duties that I do those, but I do them more as a reactive. I don't have any ability to do proactive type work. If I do, then I don't deal with people and the customer service and the applications and that kind of thing. So some of the expectations, look at it kind of as a compliance as instead of enforcement, but call it what you will. The biggest thing is that we always get is nuisance stuff, nuisance complaints. We recently in 2017 redid our nuisance ordinance to come up to a code with the KRS 61 8840 or something like that. But anyway, it deals with junk vehicles, debris in the yards. It deals with abandoned or unsafe and unfit structures. And it also deals with weeds and grass, rubbish, etc. The next one would be following up on zoning compliance issues. Now those, you break those down into both zoning compliance when it comes to people that have not moved forward about getting permits. And then you look at those that have permits or conditional uses to see if they've actually complied and done with what they said they were going to do or what they were required to do. Floodplain violations, biggest thing there is people have a tendency to start building stuff in a floodplain without even looking to see if in a floodplain or getting the permits. And the last one I thought was, you know, I know that we have never had anybody to check occupational tax violations. We get a lot of people that come in here on a temporary basis. They'll come in for a job or something like that, and they'll never file the paperwork with the clerk's office. They need to report the proper taxes. And you're dealing with somebody who's going to would be out in the field dealing with these same people on other issues, And it's simple enough that while you're there, hey, by the way, have you filed, or Linda, has so-and-so filed his application for an occupational license, occupational tax? And if they have not, then they can include that as well. So it kind of adds another layer of this.
So the position will pay for itself.
Yeah, I'm
kidding,
not
kidding,
gonna.
I'm kidding, I'm kidding.
It might help. I'm not sure if it will or not, but. And then the next part that, again, I have never been able to really get ahead on is what is preventative and proactive measures. And these are the things that I think that this position or a position of this type, if this is what you guys are wanting to do, would give them being out in the field, whoever the officer is out in the field, patrolling, they can see these items as they're out and about. They can also, we can create, and I've already started some, but create some educational programs. And I'm not talking about just bring them in here and train them. I'm talking about work with Blair to build educational pamphlets. Okay. One of the biggest things that we have is sign violations. And they're everywhere. And people don't realize, and I think it's just lack of knowledge. People don't realize what they can and can't do. So we can create pamphlets that work in zones, and you say, take these and deliver these or mail these to these zones. Talk to these owners, job owners or property owners and businesses and show them, give them the information. If they're educated and they understand it, then they're going to be less likely to violate it. But that also, you can also bring in education programs where you actually set something up for surveyors, for contractors, for even real estate agents to help them understand the zoning that goes into it and the process that goes in there as well. Part of what we enforce is not just city, but also with state statute, which we rely on a lot for some of our nuisance legislation. And then an inspection program that helps catch things early. With the patrol inspection, you're more likely to catch an issue early before they get going and have to do something dramatic to fix it. Where if you catch it early, then you can say, hey, hold it. You might need to back up and start again on this, or you didn't lay it out like you said you were going to, you need to move it, or just something like that in a situation where you try to catch them in the process or before the process to keep them from having to, take it all down and start again, or do something dramatic like that. That's what we want to try to avoid. So that's what I mean by preventative. And I guess that's, at this point, questions about what the position, this is what I see. And I was just bringing this to your all's attention. And a lot of this is based on, requests I've gotten from you all over the years to address certain items. And so this is the items that I think that this position could address, depending on what you want that individual to address.
And we did leave something out. Silas wanted to put in a good word for on the utility side of life. He's got some inspections he needs to do on the utility side. Oil and grease.
It's on there. It's under.
Is it
Yeah,
there?
I haven't got to the future programs yet.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's a day-to-day that Silas is prepared to do that right now.
Yeah,
as a-
we
as
could
a
probably
job.
move on.
So, is the pre-treatment being done, oil and grease? That would be one of the early routine things that we think we could get.
Utility inspector you see down there in the future,
Yeah.
basically you're using someone to go out there checking, they don't have to be an operator, but they can go out and they check grease traps, they can check, what were some of the other things, Brad?
Well, like I say, we gonna tear down an old house,
Yeah,
then you need someone to go in and inspect the sewer connection, make sure they cap that off, so that you're not getting more eye to eye.
yeah.
And not to get specific, but things like the oil and grease issue we had with the local
Right.
place.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So you'd set up a routine review. We've got some customers who are required to pre-treat and some of the oil and gas stuff. So are they doing what they're supposed to be doing?
Yeah.
And there's some patrol activities in that regard, like the house coming down and some other things that I can't talk about without getting specific, so I'll bypass on that. But there's some sewer utility compliance issues that could be brought in pretty quick and pretty early. So I didn't see where the bullet point had been moved down.
I think you was speaking about restaurants, like a grease trap.
Grease trap, yeah. Do the inspection on that, make sure they're not putting too much into it, more than they can handle.
Have we had oil and grease violations from the?
We've had grease
like
trap
our
violations,
discharge?
Yeah, we have.
I don't know that if we've had them from the waste treatment plant. I think you're
That's
asking.
what I'm asking.
Oh,
I'm not sure.
I don't know about that. So,
I think it's been more of an operability thing, creating
Right.
system problems on the intake side, more so than causing a exceedance.
Yeah.
Okay. So those are some of the things that, we're going to regard in this position as being core duties. And I wanted to check your temperature and check and see what that, means to you and entertain questions for some of the things that, you've had questions before. Have we executed properly? Are we letting things get away from us? Can you see how some of those concerns could be caught? Maybe there's something we've overlooked. Maybe there's something you have concerns about. I want to get that conversation going.
Well, some of my concerns, and we all get reports about grass, vehicles. We all get that stuff, and we all turn it into John. But my main concern is, is this guy going to be doing too much? Or is that going to be throwing us a sign that says, come to Calvert City, but we want you to move to Calvert City, but we want to tell you exactly how to do everything? Because, that's what it's going to come into. You're going to, when somebody moves to Calvert City, they're going to see this guy all the time, and he's going to be telling them exactly every move to make. And a lot of people, you ask, well, why don't you live in Calvert City? Well, I don't want somebody to tell me what to do every time.
And they'll use their name. Whoever we hire for this position, they're gonna say, I don't want Jim Bob Joe
then-
at my door. They're gonna hate him.
And they're gonna hate him. And then another thing is, when he starts making some of these people do some of this stuff, you're gonna start running citizens out, because there's gonna be citizens that are not gonna be financially able to get some of the things up into compliance. And we definitely don't want to run citizens out of Calvert City. And we want to run citizens up. And so that's just, it's just some of my concerns, because I definitely don't want to run anything out, but I do know that there's certain places in Calvert City that if you made everybody follow the rules, that there's going to be houses that people can't get up to compliance. And I don't want to, one of my concerns is I don't want to hire somebody and expect that person to do a job, and then he goes out to do his job, and then some person that lives down here has got to move out of Calvert City because he can't get his house in compliance, or he's got to tear a house down. And so that's just some of my concerns when we're discussing this.
Maybe when creating ordinance and the pamphlet, that we'd have to add leeway in there, give someone a chance if they can't afford it with, I didn't do work to my house till after I lived there for 5 whole years.
Yeah, there probably will be a balance established at some point, because you may have you're probably gonna have some people that it's gonna hurt, but then you may have a majority that say, my gosh, thank goodness they're gonna take care of some of that stuff.
That may be true. And and I agree wholeheartedly.
So
And there's going to be, I'm telling you, there's just going to be there's a fine line here, and it's not one and it's a lot of times when you get down to this right here, it's either right or it's wrong. It's either in ordinance or it's not an ordinance.
yeah,
And because you can't pick and choose who you want the ordinances for. That's why our ordinances are there. And this is, and my 16 years I've been on here, we've seen lots of different situations come for us. And then we know there's people that's got through loopholes on some stuff.
A lot would have to be taken case by case is how it would probably end up having to be.
It does,
But he's saying there's no gray area. If you get to
when
enforcement.
it gets down to a gray area there, when it gets down to,
Like, is the junk car in the front yard or is it not?
yeah, or is it licensed? It may be a junk car to you, but if it's got a license on it and they pay taxes license, it's not a junk car.
Right.
And that's the type of situation you get into. And then when you have a compliance officer and he's gonna start riding around Calvert City, and he's gonna look up here and say, that's not gonna be in compliance. He's gonna go home, and somebody that's had this house that way for 20 years, he's gonna send them letters, well, you gotta do this, do this, and
Well, there's some things that are grandfathered in and we wouldn't retroactive, right? Or,
Well, yeah, when it comes
As far
to
as some-
zoning, yeah, grandfathering goes into zoning, not so much a nuisance, but
yeah,
zoning,
yes,
yes.
not nuisance, right?
Yeah, anything that existed prior to 2017, when we did that ordinance there, automatically grandfathered in. But anything that happened after 17 has to be by that zoning ordinance we have now. As far as nuisance violations, junk vehicles, abandoned or dilapidated structures, weeds and grass, I mean, that's,
Maybe dilapidated structures is probably where you were going with that.
well, now, when I say dilapidated, I'm talking about unsafe, or unfit structures. I'm not looking
Okay,
at this point, I don't know that we're looking at, if you're looking at one that's kind of like a disrepair, it depends on, I guess, the severity of the disrepair, honestly. Is it unsafe because of the disrepair? If it's not, that's not what we're enforcing at this point in time. Down the road, you know, I mean, that would be a call up to you all, I think. Is that not what I'm saying?
Well, I mean, Kevin, I agree. I mean, that's really why we're talking about it at this
And I know
workshop.
that,
I
and
mean,
that's-
we went right to the core of the issue.
and that's what, and that's all, I guess that's the only way I know how to go.
And so how do you calibrate your zoning efforts to get just the right amount? And then you go into ordinances that are made and they spell it black or white. And then, so that's one of the reasons why so many of us council members and mayor was why we get the phone calls, is because there is, you know, some desire to be here, be there. And, you know, people get used to the way things have looked for 20 some odd years. And are you really going to go in and do what? I mean, we've had some of those conversations in our world. So you're really kind of talking about the calibration and the zeal of doing these things. I believe some of the things that you had in question were probably more in that last category. Adoption of building maintenance codes. Are we going to adopt maintenance codes that say that all the structures have to be to a certain level or what? I've heard conversations in this chamber about concern about how well properties are maintained. There's been talk about rental properties and should they be inspected or whatever. And you start adopting codes when you're trying to achieve those kinds of results. And we do. I mean, some of our infrastructure, some of the houses are housing stock, if you will. Some of them are on various states of modernization. Some of them are in various states of maintenance, and owners have certain abilities to fund things and not fund things. And then, you know, how do you progress a community and make sure everything's in proper order without going, well, running everybody off? We'll just leave it at that, right, Kevin? You create an environment that you don't grow, that is seen as overly enforcing things, and people don't want to be here.
Because in a standpoint, you could probably, if you got down to reading ordinances and nitpicking on everything, you could probably, every single one of us sitting here as homeowners, you could probably start nitpicking our property to death and it's out of compliance.
Right.
Man,
yeah, like a non-specific scenario would be.
man,
you
we
know,
don't all don't
somebody's-
have many.
Good thing you picked John all over it.
You know,
We all don't have many.
somebody's got a home improvement trailer outside their house, and this guy maybe sees him driving by and he said, oh, I'm gonna sit, it's no longer grandfathered in because they're modifying, right? Something or other. And then he says, you know, well, here's what you got to do to stay in compliance. And then the guy says, well, he just increased this renovation budget, maybe, you know, would that be a scenario?
I mean, I'm just putting this out there. That's just
Because it's got to be code.
because I know that this is the conversations that people is going to be having. The citizens of Calvert City is going to be having.
Mhm.
And
Well, as far as that scenario, and I'm going to defer to John here. I mean, if someone's doing an interior home renovation, doing something interior, doing an upgrade on a kitchen or whatever, I don't anticipate that being in the scope of what we're doing. I mean, I think the council would have to invoke one of the codes and say we're going to enforce that in our community. Right? You know, at some point in time, that would be if it's an electrical thing or a plumbing thing, it'd be right now, it'd be up to our county codes that we
That's
have.
correct.
It's not anything that the city has
That's not
per
the
se.
city, that'd be-
Okay. Yeah.
But that's a very good point. I mean,
Yeah.
the stuff that shows up on the exterior is the stuff that gets programmed and then put in front of the zoning board of
That's where you get
adjustments.
into footprint. That's the big thing there. We're looking at footprint and setbacks and stuff like that when it comes to zoning. We're not looking, and of course, the use, making sure it's the correct use for that area based on our ordinance. Yeah. But I mean, and when I'm talking about zoning violations, I'm talking about people start doing a project and they don't get the permits.
Yeah.
People that will go in there and they start building something and they don't realize they've got a setback, or that they have to have a conditional use if they've got more than such and such, or, you know, those kind of things. And it's not so much, like I said, more like in compliance as far as I'm thinking, instead of enforcement. You can say enforcement, but compliance is, we're trying to get these people to get in compliance, not trying to go in there and fine them. That's not what the intent is. The intent is to get them or help them get into compliance with like zoning and nuisances and stuff of that nature.
Yeah.
Right now, unless we have to take somebody to court, we don't have any fines. But if they just won't work with us, and I have no other option but to take them to court in district court, then that would be the only place they'd have a fine. Well, there's fines there. For example, a zoning ordinance violation, if they will not comply or not work with us or anything like that, it's $300 a day. For every day. But in most cases, people work with us, you know, and we work with them. I don't know if we enter a time yet, we actually, I don't know, we've actually applied that $300. I've had to go to court a couple of times on nuisance. And generally, what he said was, I mean, they paid the court costs for having to go, but they also came in compliance, which is all we were asking. There was no fine involved in it.
So we do all these things that are listed. We do all these things already.
Correct.
We just aren't able to keep up. So we want
That
to
is also
hire someone.
correct.
Okay, so if we've put a bad taste in someone's mouth, we would have already done it by now.
I'm sure we have. You know, nobody likes, well, I can't say that. There's some people that just don't like being told what to do, period. No matter, you know, if you work with them or not. Other people, you know, just don't know. And that's a lot of it I've run into. They don't know.
And I get contact with people who really want to follow everything they need to be following and just need help understanding what it is.
Yeah.
And sometimes the task seems harder than it needs to be. And the process doesn't seem to make sense, but they're going to go through it. And, you know, I've got contacts with people I know that just do whatever and not worry about compliance or really give it a second thought. And then you got other folks who want to be 100% in compliance. So you got I believe we have the whole spectrum of people. And so when you have a person who wants to comply, who wants to do all the things in our zoning ordinance, and they find it difficult to do, that's where I'm sure you guys have all heard it. Calvert City is so hard to deal with. And my reply commonly is, you want to build any old thing, any old place. I guess you're right. We do have some rules you have to follow, but it's not that tough. Let's go through that. You know, zoning in the city, as we develop and we're trying to add population, we're trying to, hang on to our demographics and expand a bit and stay viable, zoning should be a big attraction. It shouldn't be administered in such a way that it's a detractant. For many people, me included, is your home is one of your biggest investments. And the fact that you can do it in a city that's got good zoning laws and good compliance, that should act to protect your investment. And it's a give and take. And that's one of those things that everybody wants to use zoning to tell their neighbors what to do, but they don't want you to get in their shorts. Right. And so,
That's exactly it.
and that's part of it. Yeah. So, but right now is so many times we haven't got somebody on the table and Tanera brought up a very good subject. I mean, we're not looking at enacting anything now. And then as we start uncovering it, as this successful individual comes and starts doing these things, and they're going to have some need for direction, and they're going to bring up some things to the council and say, really and truly, the ordinance says this. Do you really mean that? And so, can you get your ordinance where it's okay, that it's perfect in every way? I think there's a certain amount of gray area every time, and I think that's one of the things that drives cities, municipalities to form boards to do that kind of thing. So there's an appeal process that you go through. Did you really mean that or whatever? And that gets you out of the situation that if someone knows somebody, then they can do things. Or if somebody's willing to lie to your face, they can do things. Or somebody has enough money, and then you say, folks who don't know anybody, who doesn't have enough money, I'm not connected, I can't do this. That gets into this position that's not sustainable. You can't run a community like that. You got to have equal treatment. We, as Americans, we expect equal treatment. So this is a position I think we all agreed on, because we realize we need to step up our game, and there's a lot of concerns, and Kevin threw it right out there. We can all easily envision cases where we over enforce. And then there's going to be some stuff that's reasonable enforcement that certain folks are going to interpret as over enforcement.
One of the things the city offers, unless they have water and sewer or some kind of service like that for sale or offer, then basically what we've got is customer service. And that's basically what we offer our citizens in this city, is customer service. And I know that. I bet there's not a handful of zoning compliance applications in the last few years that have not gone through without me helping them put it together. And that's exactly the way we do it. I set an appointment with them. I have them come in. I said, all I need from you is you come in here with a drawing of your property. I need measurements, but I need your property drawing. And then we'll put it together here. And so most of them do that. So when they get done, they're ready to walk out with a signed permit instead of having to wait and go back and do it again and do this again, do that again. So we try to do that and make sure that that's the type of service we want to be known for.
But this position, at least not initially, won't be doing those things. Okay. They won't be, at least not initially, till they learn what, maybe they'll grow into it and be taking some portion of just normal things. But I don't know.
But I would like to see this individual, whoever it is, work to understand that we're doing customer service, not just being out here just showing, puffing the chest up. And
I don't think that individual will come off like that.
What's that?
That's customer service.
That's customer
Yeah.
service.
Well,
I don't believe it's gonna be
maybe not.
customer service.
Well, I mean, yeah.
That's just I'm just throwing this stuff out here, and
Depends on your audience.
I'm not
Well, I mean, anybody.
I'm not bashing this.
Yeah.
I'm just throwing.
Well, I think you're being realistic. I think you're being
I'm
realistic.
throwing the truth out.
If somebody has a compliance issue,
Man,
if they're letting their property do things where they're out of compliance with certain things, and when someone goes to talk to them, it's probably not going to be the best interaction in the world, and they're not going to perceive it as service very easily. But do you treat them respectfully? Yeah. Do you tell them that this is things we have to do, and are you being nitpicky? Are you being reasonable? Well, each individual who has that encounter will draw their own conclusions to that.
I mean, it's the same thing as soon as you start building a garage and the first person that pulls in the driveway is a PVA office.
Yeah.
That's exactly what this person's going to be, and that's what it's going to be.
Well, we're not the first community to have this.
No, we're not.
And they all started somewhere. And I bet there's lots of them that started in the last 10 years. So we would have a lot of potential resources to see how you ease this thing in, even though we may kind of know what we need to do. And it'll vary by community. And for sure, you got to have a balance that, maybe you end up with for every 10 encounters you have, you're going to have one that's not going to go well, and you just got to expect it. But most of them are going to go okay. And I just think most people have heard of zoning and compliance and nuisance ordinances. And, if they haven't, well, they need to be educated on it, or they need to go live in the county. I just don't think the majority of them will be that way. And for the person who ends up in that job, for sure, it's going to take a person with a certain amount of public to know how to get along and not come across as I'm the authority and you know nothing and you got to do what I say. If they do that, they won't last.
We need a
at all.
calm
We'll be
That's
fine.
true. Yeah.
Yeah,
We get too many
agree.
complaints.
I
but
agree.
it won't be
I
easy.
agree with you on that.
we'll definitely need somebody with a calm demeanor.
So John, what percentage of your time gets tied up in some of these things right now? Just ballpark.
Well, it varies honestly. The fact that our nuisance ordinance allows us to notify, like on a grass, we can notify the individual only doing it one time in the year, and then the rest they have to. That's the only notice they'll receive. So if they violate it again, Brad and his guys just roll right in and mow it. And we'll send them a bill. We don't send them a second notice. And it says specifically on there, you will not receive another notice.
Yeah.
So the letter actually states that. So, I mean, that helps. But, still you're talking about, I left to leave here and spend days of time going through and patrolling. And then since I'm not out there, but just occasionally, I'm sure there's a lot of zoning issues that I miss because I'm not seeing it on a regular basis, see it here and there. And if I don't remember that structure last time, or was it there last time? How long? Again, it's one of those things. So everything takes up time with that, and sometimes an enormous amount of time. I've got one right now that I've actually had to utilize the police department on to assist. And that's taken months to work on it off and on. So it varies. I mean, others are just real simple. Hey, did you know that you needed a permit?
Yeah.
No, I did not. Set an appointment up. We'll get you taken care of.
Well, my question was more pointed towards the fact
Okay.
of how much this would free you up quite a bit to do more valuable things.
Oh,
I'd rather see you going and finding and getting us grants than sending people letters about the grass. That would be a pro in my book.
Well, and I think that's kind of what happens when we start having people come to us with concerns about how well the compliance in the community is going. I think it's indicative that we haven't been able to focus enough resources on that on a continuous basis. And I think that's why we agreed. And of course, we don't come to 100% agreement on every line item. And that's why we're here. But I think all of us understand that it needs a more steady hand. Said that incorrect, but you just have to have a focus on it. I mean, it has to be primary focus. And I think once some of the stuff gets in order, if you will, that it's going to be a calibration type procedure. How what are the things that the community needs to enforce and which ones aren't, and then you're going to get into the specifics like we sometimes do. So when you go and this person goes and talks to someone about something that maybe for the first time, and they'll come to us right now and say, hey, I've got a problem with this. Right. And then you get to calibrate how well that is. And you say, is this being equally enforced? And that's when we talk about other stuff that comes in front of the council all the time, we check on that. And I'm not going to get into those specific ones. So I think it'll be a journey. And I think that bringing a person who's devoted to these primarily will eventually get the place to where it looks better, and some of their activities are going to change over time. and get more proactive and out in front of it instead of just taking care of the problematic things.
I actually foresee that this individual may or may not be able to get everything accomplished here that we are set on this task list, because they may be, and I don't mean busier to the point of all compliance, but there's a lot of things out there that slip. And they're not major things, but they just things that need to be addressed. And again, I'm talking about with grass and stuff like that. I mean, you look at something and you say, oh, that area hadn't been mowed. And you go back and look and say, well, again, that's 5 acres. I can't touch it. You know, or you go in and you say, well, now I've this and this, and I got to go back and identify that property. Then I've got to find out who the owner is, the proper address, get that notification out. It's a lot of things, you know, and with dilapidated structures, it's even more so. It gets to be real tricky there and spend a lot of time. And then you have to bring people in that are qualified to make those calls as well. So it's not, I'm sorry.
Does this anticipate a code enforcement board?
Well, they kind of shifts us up to the kind of what I'm calling the third bullet point. There's some things down there at the bottom of the page. You know, as we start this journey and as things start being addressed, we may see the ultimate need. I mean, like you observed earlier, we're not the only community who've done this. And, you know, in fact, Blair had a happenstance encounter with Benton's enforcement. And, you know, there's a group of guys and maybe probably gals too, people who do this common job around, and they meet periodically and kind of try to calibrate against each other and share methods that work or don't work.
So this job exists.
Yeah.
Yeah, in other places. Yeah.
I feel like it was fate because I went to the Jackson Purchase Fire School meeting on Thursday with Timmy, and I sat next to Worser, just randomly, and I had the opportunity to talk with him. And of course, I just asked him 1,000 questions of what they do and how they do it. And it was a really, eye-opening on what Benton already does.
Well, we know we're not looking to follow any particular lead on any particular city or anything. We need to do what's right for Calvert, but there are people who face similar issues in other communities. Okay. And, Paducah, Bowling Green, other cities were obviously not as big as those.
Right now, you are the code board. Anybody that appeals in a nuisance violation is going to appeal it to you. A code board, if you elect to do one, would be a buffer between you and the citizens with this citizen board. Again, that's not something that's required, but that's something that, that's something to consider. The big thing is you are the board right now. You're the code board. So anything is done, if it's going to be appealed, it's going to come to you, and you're going to have to make that call.
And I think every local government does some portion of this. Anybody who has any kind of ordinances, doing these sorts of things, do it. And, even down to homeowners associations, they can get quite in your shorts about stuff, to cities, to whatever. One of the things that a city should offer is that when people come here and establish businesses, establish homes, that there's not things happening next to them immediately in their area that's going to detract from their investment or make, would try your best to steer development in a sensible fashion and have everybody do their part that they need to do. For the common good, if you will. And so can we sit around and name examples of people went overboard? Yeah, we could probably all sit around and name examples that went underboard. And we're going to have to find some way to do what fits for Calvert City. And the reason I mentioned that earlier and Blair had mentioned is there are other people facing this issue that could be a help in establishing some of our protocols and things that have worked other places. There's things to learn. And obviously you need to pick what works for you.
Who would they report to, or would they just be a member of staff that reports to you? They report to you, John? I mean, does that matter?
That would be my thoughts on it.
Which?
Just someone that would report to me.
I mean, I think that would make sense.
Because I'd probably be the point of contact because of at front, especially them learning the different ordinances and the nuances of the ordinances.
Well, there's a lot of overlap.
And I thought that's what we had decided when we decided to budget for something like that, that they would report to you. I mean, I feel like we do these things now. They just don't get the focus that they deserve, that the city deserves. So I feel like it's gonna work.
So why are we having a workshop? Am I looking for a decision? I wanted to illuminate the idea instead of just, hey, it's in the budget, let's fill it. I wanted to go and get some thoughts and see what everybody's temperature was. And at some point, we'll have to come up with a full-blown job description and start, interviewing for the position at some point. But I didn't want to check to see where we were on that. Before we kind of shift into future, into kind of the other side I'd like to cover, does anybody got anything more to say about this job or want to? I don't know. I feel like I'm on hold right now, and I don't know how we're going to get off hold, how we're going to get enough agreement to move forward. I think that ruminate on some of this. Is there something on the list that we've overlooked? And I don't know if it's fair to spring this on you at the actual meeting and ask for that, but think about there's something that could be overlooked from different things. And depending upon the individual that's selected, they're going to come to the position with a certain amount of experiences and a resume, training, formal training, or whatever. So there's I think the people who would be interested in this are going to have a background they bring to us. So there's going to be core duties and expectations, but I think the successful person is going to be kind of the Swiss Army knife sort of thing, that there's going to be other things in their toolkit that they can maybe do. I mean, I can envision, somebody comes from a fire service background, might be able to help some things in the fire department. Somebody comes from a safety background, might be able to do some training alleviation. Somebody who comes from some more enforcement might be able, more administrative tasks, maybe help with some of the, I hate to say this, but how do you establish, what would be the pros and cons of having an enforcement board, and maybe illuminate some things. And if you adopted a property maintenance code, that's a big step. Yeah, that's a big step. So kind of park it there. Somebody got something they want to say before I kind of shift our focus here a little bit.
Like I said, I'm not running this down in no means. I was just pointing out some of the things that's gonna come up. I mean, I'm just those are just
So things you already hear, you
Yes.
already hear that we have way too many ordinances, everything like that. It's the things that you already hear from people. Then you have the other side of it where they don't think we enforce our ordinances enough, depending on who you're talking to.
That's
That's
right.
what this position really is all about.
Right, it
That
depends.
part.
Yeah.
I guess my question would be is, do we have a whole bunch of complaints from people that we're not enforcing our ordinances?
We get a lot of complaints of different things,
Right.
not necessarily, I don't know about, I can't say, you would hear probably more about you're not enforcing the ordinances than we get. We get all kinds of complaints every day about this by this,
You're the
this
complaint
yard or that. I'm sorry.
You're the complaint department.
That's
Yeah.
exactly right.
Some
So,
of them
yeah,
aren't violations of any.
Some of them-
ordinance that
some
we
are.
have.
Some
I mean,
of them
they're
are.
just something they don't like.
Right.
Oh, that's what I'm saying. This guy doesn't keep his carport clean the way I like my
Yeah.
carport clean. I mean,
Yeah. And
I've lived this life. I'm telling you, I know. I hear that quite a bit, or I did.
Well, will this position go after things that aren't formal complaints? I think that's the first, but the patrol, will they go seek out?
my biggest
Their own.
concern with patrol is gonna be grass. What I'm thinking is gonna be the weeds and stuff like it, but also zoning violations. Stuff like that. That's my biggest concern with that there, is that if they're doing patrol, they're doing it for that.
Yeah.
The other is looking for a safety issue where you've got a building that we may have missed that is actually structurally unsound. And we need to have somebody come in and look at it. I'm not sure where. I've got a feeling that there's gonna be enough for them to do and for them not to.
They won't be
for them to
looking
Go out
for
there
work.
and it's like the deal, what is a police officer, people, say, what do you do as a police officer when you got nothing else to do? Run radar. I can tell you right now, police officers have got plenty to do. Radar may be part of it because it's assigned enforcement, but it's not gonna be all that they do. If they do, then there's somebody else is losing out somewhere.
Okay.
So I know how that works, being there. So I think that there's gonna be enough of the
I mean,
low hanging fruit
Yeah.
to keep somebody busy.
I agree with what you said there, because I mean, I could drive around, I could show you 2 or 3
Yeah.
things that's popped up right now
Yeah.
that I know as dumb as I am, that is not compliant.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah. It's
But that's what I'm
And I
saying.
mean, I agree with what you're saying. I just want to make sure we do it properly. We're not running people out of Calvert City.
Yeah.
Because we are here to draw people to Calvert City.
but
And there is, I mean, I'm like I said, there's just a fine line.
right. To answer Chris's question, I mean, one of the things that bothers me the most is unequal enforcement. And that and I think all of us probably have been presented stories. When people tell you when they're up in arms about stuff, sometimes they don't know all the facts. Sometimes they don't tell you all the facts. But when you hear, some issue where somebody's clearly out of compliance, and there's always, well, then you got this one, you got this one, and it's just like, I can't imagine what the body cam footage is on people getting ready to get a speeding ticket, and so you get all that kind of stuff. But it's even more important because there's some significant money and investments that maybe have been made and have been, hopefully, if we had more knowledge, people wouldn't take the kind of penalty and effort and disappointment of making a plan from the start, thinking they're going to do something when you find out you can't. And
I think it's on us to establish a pertinent and kind of focused job description. And then once we get a good body, it would be on John to kind of foster that customer service first
Mhm.
mentality and approach. And hopefully that's a good.
well, I mean, I don't know whether we can put this to a true vote, but it's just a general overall inclination whether we should proceed to get a person that's going to put some focus on it and move us forward. And I'm not going to ask for that right now. I think we'll wait and for this discussion at a council meeting. I don't think we can have a conversation like this in a council meeting alone. And I feel terrible. This is the second time we've had a workshop this week. We've had a special call meeting, but kind of think about this stuff and we'll pull it back out at the September council meeting. But moving forward, it's as far as development of the community and, some of the marketing efforts that Blair is doing. And, when we drive around Calvert, we're used to what it looks like in our minds. And then part of our issue with development is that we've got a lot of folks in our community that have invested in the community and they're waiting for an opportunity to come by and they'll sell it for a price. And the different areas that could be core are kind of laying dormant and nobody's really promoting that. And so it's almost the same question. I mean, what kind of growth, what's our vision of how much we want to grow? And then the people that could help and how do we set a leadership type vision to where we go and make it a community that people want to locate to. I tell you what, right now, I mean, remember the council meeting when we had the buzz going on for the sesquicentennial and community pride's very high. People from outside our community, there's a message. People don't come to Calvert unless you're looking for Calvert. You don't pass through here just for kicks because there's not a bridge across the river. So you come to Calvert, you come into Calvert. And when people came to Calvert, they're looking and saying, wow, what a great job has been going on. And we got from the parks and the party that was thrown, if you will, but just seeing the parks and how we take care of stuff. I've heard a lot of comments, and I don't think it's just because of a change in my status from council member to mayor. People are saying positive things about our community. So how do we foster that? What are some of the barriers for developing corridors? And some of them get ugly. Some of them just need to be cleaned up. And we're doing some things on zoning compliance and the number of parking spaces. And I hear it all the time. Oh my gosh, you guys. I mean, you're not St. Louis. You're not Nashville. Why's a little town like Calvert City got to be so complicated? It's like you're putting in an investment that's going to be there for 50 plus years. And, you know, it needs to be thought out that it fits what the vision is, that it fits the space it's going to be at. And it's there for a while. And so, you know, different people, you know, to really grow, we're gonna have to get out of the comfort area a little bit. And, you know, we can see potential, but it's not our investment. It's not my money that's sitting there on a lot. It's their money. And so how do you show them the way and show them the vision and bring them value to maybe doing things a little different that can help the community grow and be better? So on that visionary process, that gets into things like, you know, where do we want to be on building code? Where do we want to be on the overall granularity of how strict you're going to be on these different ordinances you pass, you know? So, you know, moving forward is the idea that we're going to have a code enforcement board. So they do the normal routine business. That if somebody takes exception to a correction, that they're going to come and do it, or just come to us. Well, we're not, I mean, the council's not overflowing right now, but then again, we're not focusing on code enforcement either. So there may come a time when that seems to make some sense. We've all talked about the worrisome part of rental properties. And people, you know, in the rental business say they need to really go through and slide in as least expense as you can, or you go top end. And so when you have middle of the road, it doesn't seem to be as an attractive investment. So what's our will? What's the leadership position on making sure that your rental stock in your community is well enough taken care of, that it's an asset and not a liability? How do you prevent from becoming what's considered a poor place to do a home? You know, what's going to our vision that we have, I think is taken into some question, whether we're after empty nesters or whether you're after school age kids. We want everybody to come here and enjoy the amenities and stuff, and we have poorly maintained properties. I don't think anybody likes to see that and live next door to that. That makes people concerned. So, you know, there's a lot of community input we need to do on that. So there's no answers, and I don't expect any answers. I'm trying to plant a seed that as we go through and develop, that we need to get some leadership vision. And you know, we've got zoning ordinances, we've got our zoning map. How can we make it more user friendly? How can we let people be self-serviced, you know, so they can have some inkling of where we're at? And that's all communication. Blair's brings that to the table. What do we do as far as trying to engage other stakeholders in the community, the real estate owners, the community landowners that like to develop and can't get enough money for the land, all that stuff? How do you get that vision to go? You know, we've got this new, we've got the driveway to the state park, and we need to make sure that the home where the driveway is worth visiting. And we try to impact as much as we can. I mean, the airport's a beautiful example of that. And we try to support Scott, and, you know, we have connections with the park management, if you will, and try to do whatever we can to support. So there's a lot of ways we can go. I think we're heading in the right direction, but we've got to face up to the fact of the condition of our housing stock in town. It can be a problem. So, you know, I'm not sure what the wise way to do that is. How do you make Calvert City where people want to invest? How do you make it? And everybody's got to have a place to live, and there's going to be different ideas of what, but, you know, people have been here a very long time, and we're certainly not looking at running anybody off, but we're looking at trying to help folks get better and have better, if you will. So, John, on some of these other bullet here, the adoption of the actual building code would be a huge step. We'd have to have a lot of education on that. Code enforcement board, you know, that's one that could be there. The rental properties, you know, how does the property maintenance code build into what you could make possible with rental properties? And then you know, the review of the building application, is that the next bullet?
Yeah, that was just getting the individual at some point in time, maybe start getting that person caught up enough with the process on the administrative side that might be the successor. You know, there might be you know, one thing that we need to look at also in the future is not just what we need to do to fix now, but what we do with the succession down the road with like when Ralph retired, or when, you know, when others retire, we need to make sure that we've got some folks that could be available for succession. It doesn't stop or slow down what we're doing, and it keeps the ball moving forward at all times. And that's part of what I was thinking with that, is that this individual could be maybe bringing them up to snuff with that person that could move forward into an administrative position, and then bring in somebody else then later on for another compliance.
Are you trying to tell us you're not gonna be here?
No, I'm not
forever?
saying that. No, I'm not saying, I'm just saying,
Are you trying
you
to
know,
tell us that you're not long
it
or
did-
something?
I'm just saying that
You keep getting that out
zoning
there.
is not something you just jump into, that's for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
But, as we go down the journey toward trying to, there's going to be some things that need to be straightened out, and you're going to run into a brick wall and realize you had something that didn't make sense. And that's the appeals process. And then how do you go back and fix it? So on that, mainly wanted to make you guys aware that I'm not in any big hurry to go out and just jump into this without engaging you guys. Okay. And I'm hearing overall, it's the temperature with the zeal that we do it and the calibration of the right level of enforcement. And I'm telling you, it's the same thing like so many other rules you have, from speeding to fill in the blank with ordinances. Was once somebody gets tagged, and especially somebody who wants to be in compliance gets tagged with a violation of some sort, then they start questioning it, and you got to look and make sure that you're up to snuff on what you're trying to enforce. You get tested, and that's not a bad thing. We need to be tested. You need to have reasonable rules on the books, and we can always improve. But I guess next council meeting, we'll try to have a more firm job description up there and get your thoughts together, and we'll take a look and see whether we want to progress on this or not. I mean, does that make sense, everybody?
Yeah.
Fair enough. I mean, we had this workshop and that was discussed some of the pros and cons of it, and that's,
Well,
I mean,
I didn't want to jump out there and just go find and start putting out applications and then have a bunch of questions of what are y'all trying to do from the public and all that. And then when we
and
get
we
to
put it in the budget. That's what you
Yeah.
said you was going to do.
Yeah.
So I'm just putting this in the budget so we can have a discussion about it.
And
later.
I'm not for sure we got the right level, since we haven't been talking to the kind of applicants that are going to be. We may have to adjust some things on pay one way or the other. We might decide to do something different. If you found the right individual, maybe we could do something a little different on the overall position, whether it's full-time or not, for instance, and stuff like that. It just depends on, so many of these things. And this is one that just from leadership is the first incumbent in a position can make it or break it. Sometimes you get a person who does a great job of taking over a spot and expanding it. But when you carve it out, don't want to single out anybody, but Blair here, maybe when you start that position for the first time, you've got to have the right individual who's going to grow it the direction you want it. And if you don't, it is very, very person dependent on being successful. So this first selection is very key, and getting everybody's buy-in, because we've got to support them. If we're going to hire them and we're going to tell them what to do, we need to get them calibrated, and we need to support them. The first time if they step on somebody's toes and we go in and we've wasted the whole effort. We're back to the way we were. Okay.
I agree 100% with that. If we're going to have somebody, we got to support it. I mean, there's not no doubt about that.
Okay.
We've got a good track record with new hires, though.
Yeah, we did. She's not even
We've got
paying.
a pretty good record with most hires in this community.
Oh, we're teasing Blair on that, but yeah, we've got an excellent staff across the board, I have to say.
That's true.
Really, really, really pleased with the personnel we have on board. I speak for myself, and I think all of you, each of you, we've got a good group of employees, and I'm glad that we've got the community support and wherewithal to have a good team on board. And what really drives it, we're blessed with volunteers too to run on these various boards. And that's all community pride. So
Your vision, and I'll just throw something out here, your vision and the work that you do in moving this community forward has reaped many benefits or many compliments over the past. I brought a group of folks in here, there were city managers from across this region, and actually one guy came from down around Covington, Kentucky. And they were amazed at what you all have accomplished here. And I'm talking about city managers that do this every day. One who couldn't praise us highly enough is the city manager from Henderson, Kentucky. He was just absolutely loved what we had done here with the community. And then I had a gentleman that came in today, was an old friend of mine from down around Fulton County that was the city manager, and he runs transit authority now. And he couldn't praise this community highly enough at what he saw. And so what you're doing is reaping a lot of knowledge, a lot of, or not knowledge, but a lot of recognition is the word I'm looking for. And so people from outside this community see it, not just the people here, people from outside this community see it, and they like what they see. So,
Wow.
well done,
And those are people in the biz.
well done.
All right. Does anybody got any closing comments before we? Well, I'd entertain a motion and look forward to talking about this some more and probably more directed at the next council meeting.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're done.
Thank you guys for coming.
Yeah.
Somebody on the board.
I may do that.